Nearly 1,700 people in Britain just did something almost nobody has ever pulled off. They dragged the biggest cryptocurrency exchange on the planet and the man who built it into a courtroom in London. And they are not asking for an apology. They want $200 million back. The exchange is Binance. The man is Changpeng Zhao, the billionaire the whole industry just calls CZ. And the claim these investors are making is not that they made a bad bet or that the market moved against them or that they got unlucky. Their claim is far more dangerous than that. They are arguing that Binance sold them products it was never allowed to sell them in the first place. That the losses were not just their fault. They were, in the words of the lawyers, life-changing, and that somebody has to answer for it. Now, before you assume this is just another angry investor story that goes nowhere, stay with me. Because the specific argument they are making is one that could rewrite the rules for every crypto platform that has ever touched a British customer. And to understand why it is so dangerous, you have to understand one date. One single line in the rulebook that Binance is accused of stepping right over. Let me take you back to the beginning. To be clear from the start, everything I am about to describe is an allegation. Nothing here has been proven in court, and Binance denies wrongdoing. Keep that in mind the whole way through. But here is what the claim actually says. Around late 2019, Binance began offering complex, high-powered financial products to ordinary people in the United Kingdom. Not simple buying and selling of Bitcoin. That part is not what this case is about. We are talking about derivatives, leverage tokens, futures contracts, options. If those words mean nothing to you, here is all you need to know. These are turbocharged bets. They let you control a position far bigger than the money you actually put in. When you are right, the gains are enormous. When you are wrong, and most people are wrong, the losses do not just sting. They can wipe you out completely, sometimes faster than you can even react. These are, without exaggeration, some of the most dangerous products in all of finance. And they were being offered, the claim says, to everyday retail investors. People with no special training. People who had no real way of understanding the risk they were standing on top of. And this is where that one date comes in. On the 6th of January, 2021, Britain's financial regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, did something blunt and deliberate. It banned the sale of exactly these kinds of crypto derivatives to ordinary consumers. Full stop, not restricted, not discouraged, banned. And the regulator did not mince words about why. It said these products were simply unsuitable for regular people. There was no reliable way to value the underlying assets. The markets were riddled with the risk of abuse and financial crime. The prices were wildly, violently volatile. And retail investors, in the FCA's assessment, had almost no chance of understanding what they were really holding. One senior FCA official put it plainly. Significant price volatility, he said, combined with the inherent difficulty of valuing these assets reliably, places retail consumers at high risk of suffering losses. High risk of suffering losses, that was the regulator's verdict in black and white at the start of 2021. So now you can see the shape of the accusation. The investors say Binance was marketing these products in the UK before that ban. And the case argues it kept some of these products flowing to UK customers when, under British law, that activity required a permission Binance simply did not have. And here is the legal heart of it, the part that makes this more than just a complaint. In Britain, you are not allowed to carry on this kind of regulated financial business without authorization from the FCA. Doing it without that permission is not a paperwork slip. It is a criminal offense, and that is the hook the entire $200 million claim hangs on. The argument is not merely that the investments were risky, it is that they should never have been sold to these people at all. The case was filed in London's High Court in late June of 2026, brought by a law firm called KP Law on behalf of nearly 1,700 claimants. They are seeking more than £150 million, around $200 million. And the lawyers are calling it the first case of its kind in the country. The losses, they say, range from tens of thousands of pounds to millions. And for many of the people involved, they were genuinely life-changing. Now, What does Binance say to all this? Their response has been short and controlled. A spokesperson said the company remains committed to its obligations to users and to operating in accordance with applicable law. And beyond that, on active litigation, they have declined to say more. That is a perfectly normal legal posture. But it is worth noticing what it does not do. It does not explain what happened between 2019 and 2021. It simply plants a flag and prepares to fight. And here is my honest read on this whole thing. The uncomfortable truth is that Binance's relationship with British regulators was never exactly warm. Back in June of 2021, the FCA issued a formal notice about Binance's UK arm, and the language it used was extraordinary. It said the firm was, and I am quoting directly here, not capable of being effectively supervised. Think about how damning that is. Not that Binance broke a specific rule, that the regulator did not believe it could even keep proper watch over the company at all. It ordered the firm not to carry out regulated activity in the UK without written consent, and it told them to plaster a warning across their site saying they were not permitted to do regulated business in Britain. So, when I look at this new lawsuit, I do not see it appearing out of nowhere. I see it as the bill finally arriving for a period when, in my view, a lot of these platforms operated first and asked for permission later. The whole culture of that era was move fast, grab the users, and deal with the regulators when they eventually catch up. And for a long time, that strategy worked beautifully because the regulators were slow and the money was fast. This case is what it looks like when the regulators finally catch up. Not with a fine that a giant company can absorb as the cost of doing business, but with 1,700 individual people, each with a lawyer, each with a number, standing in a courtroom and pointing at that one date on the calendar. Now, I have to be fair here, because there is a real argument on the other side. Every one of these investors chose to open an account. They chose to trade leveraged products. Nobody forced them to push that button. And there is a serious question of personal responsibility that no lawsuit can waive away. If you bet on turbocharged crypto derivatives and you lose, is that really the exchange's fault or is it yours? But the law's answer to that is subtle, and it is worth understanding. British consumer protection is built on a simple idea. Some products are considered so dangerous and so hard for ordinary people to judge that the responsibility does not sit entirely with the buyer. It sits with the seller, and with whether that seller was even allowed to be selling in the first place. That is the entire reason the FCA drew a hard line in 2021. The whole point of the ban was to say these are not products the average person should be able to walk into. And if a company sold them anyway, without the permission to do so, then personal responsibility stops being the end of the conversation. And this is why the case matters far beyond the people bringing it. If these claimants win, or even if they force a large settlement, it establishes something huge. It says a crypto exchange can be held directly liable in a British court for selling regulated products it had no authority to sell. Every platform that ever operated in that grey zone would suddenly have a very large, very expensive reason to worry. There is one more piece of this that you cannot ignore, and that is the man whose name is on the claim. CZ is not a stranger to a courtroom. Back in 2023, he pleaded guilty in the United States to failing to maintain proper anti-money laundering controls at Binance. He stepped down as chief executive. He personally paid a $50 million fine, and Binance agreed to a settlement of over $4 billion. He served 4 months in prison. That is entirely separate from this UK case. Different country, different issue. But it tells you something about the pattern. This is not a company that has kept a clean, quiet relationship with the world's regulators. It is one that has repeatedly found itself explaining after the fact why the rules did not seem to apply on the way up. So here is where we are. 1,700 people, $200 million, one court in London, and one date in the rulebook that the whole thing turns on. Whether they win or lose, the era of asking forgiveness instead of permission might finally be running out of road. What do you think? Is this the exchange's fault for selling it, or the investor's fault for buying it? Tell me in the comments. And if you want the biggest stories in money explained without the jargon and without the hype, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.